When a Scorpio transforms you, either witness a rebirth or burn in the process. There is a moment in every Scorpio's life when silence becomes sacred, not because they have nothing to say, but because something far more powerful is happening beneath the surface, a transformation. And most people miss it. They think Scorpio is just being quiet. They assume Scorpio is pulling away. They tell themselves it's just a phase. But it's not a phase, it's a soul quake. When a Scorpio transforms, it's not just about changing habits or ending relationships. It's a spiritual death. A shedding of everything that no longer serves them: beliefs, roles, identities, even people. And if you're standing too close, unaware of the energy erupting from within them, you may not survive what comes next. Scorpio is the only sign in the zodiac that's born with a contract for destruction and rebirth. This isn't just astrology, this is alchemy. Most people run from transformation, but Scorpio, they walk into the fire willingly and then walk out with their bones glowing gold. But here's the warning: if you try to save them during this time, if you try to pull them back into who they used to be, if you try to analyze, fix, or question them, you will lose them. Not because they hate you, but because the version of themselves you knew is already gone. You're speaking to a ghost and you don't even know it yet. In ancient mysticism, Scorpio was often associated with the phoenix, the mythical bird who burns to ash and is born again from the flame. But what most people forget is that before a Scorpio becomes the phoenix, they are the scorpion, low to the ground, defensive, dangerous. And that's who you're dealing with when you get too close to a Scorpio in transition. This transformation isn't for your comfort, it's for their survival. And it comes with a cost, one you don't get to negotiate. Some Scorpio will disappear, others will become colder, some will cut ties with everyone and everything, even the people who love them the most. Why? Because evolution demands isolation. No one walks into the underworld holding someone's hand. This video isn't about understanding Scorpio. It's about respecting the space around them when they begin to shift. Because what's happening inside is not a mood, it's a sacred ceremony. So if you've been feeling like your Scorpio friend, lover, or family member has changed, if you've noticed the silence, the stillness, the stare that seems to go right through you, if you felt the air get heavy when they walk into the room, it's not your imagination, it's the storm before the rebirth. And if you're wise, you'll back off, not in fear, but in reverence. Because what's about to emerge is not just a changed person, it's a completely reborn soul. Let's dive into the 10 unmistakable signs that a Scorpio is transforming and why crossing their sacred boundary now could cost you everything. Sign: the silence. That isn't just silence. You think they're pulling away, you think they're ghosting you, you think they're upset, maybe even angry. But the truth is deeper and far more sacred. When a Scorpio goes silent, truly silent, it is not the silence of resentment, it is not the silence of manipulation, it is the silence of spiritual combustion. This is the first sign that a Scorpio is transforming. They fall completely, profoundly, mystically silent, and it is not meant for you to understand. To the outside world, it looks like avoidance, but to those who feel energy rather than just observe behavior, you'll know something ancient is stirring beneath their skin. They are not pulling away from you. They are being pulled inward by a force even they don't fully understand. Scorpio is a water sign, but not like Pisces who drifts in dreams or Cancer who nests in emotional safety. Scorpio's waters are subterranean. They flow beneath the ground, still, cold, black, but alive. And when those waters begin to boil, when the soul begins burning away the old identity, it doesn't speak. It drowns out the world. Scorpios do not transform through loud declarations or public reinventions. They do it through withdrawal, through sacred solitude, through choosing to die energetically, physically, before they are reborn emotionally. I once worked with a Scorpio woman in her early 40s, highly accomplished, magnetic, articulate. One day, without warning, she stopped responding to messages. She stopped showing up at events. She even quit a project we had spent months building. Everyone whispered, "She's spiraling, she's giving up." But I knew better. 6 months later, she emerged again, not just different, but untouchable. Her energy was sharper, her presence deeper. She had lost people, yes, but she had gained herself. She didn't just change, she shed. And here is where the warning lies. If you try to interrupt this silence, if you chase them, demand answers, or push them to stay who they were, you may become part of what they are meant to release. Scorpio's silence is not a space for you to fill. It's a chamber for their metamorphosis. And those who try to pry it open usually get cut by the sting. Because what is happening in this silence is sacred soul surgery. It's messy, painful, divine. Not everyone can sit still in the presence of such mystery, but if you truly love a Scorpio, you must learn to honor their need for invisible healing. Life lesson from sign 1: not all silence is absence. Sometimes silence is where the soul rearranges itself. Learn to respect the quiet spaces in people's lives, especially those ruled by Scorpio. Because transformation doesn't always come with sound, it often arrives in the form of sacred stillness. Sign 2: the eyes that start seeing through everything. There is something unnerving about a Scorpio's gaze, even on an ordinary day. But when they are transforming, that gaze becomes something else entirely. It becomes a mirror, a microscope, a weapon, a revelation. This is the second sign that a Scorpio is undergoing spiritual transformation. Their eyes stop looking at you and start seeing through you. You can feel it the way they study you without blinking, as if every word you say is just a surface ripple. But they are already 10 layers beneath it. They are scanning your motives, testing your vibration, weighing your soul. Not in judgment, in preparation. You see, when a Scorpio transforms, they no longer engage with the mask you present to the world. They interact with your core truth. And if that truth doesn't align with their next chapter, they will let you fall away without explanation. Scorpio is ruled by Pluto, the planet of death, secrets, and hidden power. And nothing reflects that more than their eyes during this time. Their pupils look darker. Their stare lasts longer. You'll find yourself avoiding eye contact, not because you're guilty, but because you feel seen. Truly unnervingly seen. I remember a client, a Leo man, who once dated a Scorpio woman. He told me it was like sleeping next to someone who knew all my dreams, even the ones I hadn't admitted to myself. He didn't cheat, he didn't lie, but she walked away one morning and never returned. When I asked her why, she said one sentence: "His energy started hiding something. I didn't even need proof." That's the thing. A transforming Scorpio no longer needs evidence. Their intuition upgrades. Their vision becomes X-ray. They feel what you don't say. They hear what you suppress. They spot what's not being shown. And once they start seeing through you, they're no longer relating to who you pretend to be. They're relating to who you truly are. That is terrifying and holy. Here's where the caution comes in. If you notice that a Scorpio's eyes feel heavier, deeper, more penetrating, don't try to outtalk it. Don't hide behind explanations. Don't ask, "Why are you looking at me like that?" Because the answer might shatter you. Let them look. Let them see. And if you're meant to remain in their life after this transformation, the truth in your soul will speak for itself. Life lesson from sign 2: when someone begins to transform, their perception transforms with them. A Scorpio doesn't need to confront you to know you've changed or that you're no longer aligned. Learn to embrace transparency, because during times of deep transformation, only the truth survives. Sign 3: the sudden disconnection from people they once loved. This one hurts because it doesn't come with a warning. No dramatic goodbye, no long explanation, just absence. One day, you're a part of their inner circle, laughing, sharing secrets, exchanging souls. And the next, they vanish like a ghost. This is the third sign that a Scorpio is transforming. They suddenly cut off connections with people they once loved deeply and without any visible reason. And here's the painful truth. They don't owe you a reason, not during this phase, because what's happening isn't about you, it's about alignment. Scorpios by nature are deeply loyal. When they let someone in, it's not casual, it's not surface level, it's soul level. So, when a Scorpio starts disconnecting from people they've loved, it's not because those people weren't important. It's because the version of themselves that bonded with those people is dying. Transformation for Scorpio is like a spiritual molting, and what's left behind isn't just the old beliefs, habits, or wounds. It's often the old relationships too. There's a story I'll never forget. A Scorpio man I worked with, 33 years old, quiet, brilliant, deep thinker, had a best friend since college. They were brothers in all but blood. Until one winter, something in him shifted. He began pulling away, stopped replying, avoided calls. When his friend asked, "What did I do wrong?" the Scorpio answered, "Nothing. But I'm not who I was when we met. And holding on to you keeps me tied to a version of myself I'm meant to leave behind." Cold maybe, but it wasn't cruel, it was honest. And it was necessary. Scorpio doesn't disconnect out of hatred, they disconnect out of truth. When they start evolving, anything or anyone that holds the energy of their old life will begin to feel heavy, even toxic. They can sense when a connection is built on trauma, old wounds, or patterns that no longer fit who they're becoming. And because Scorpio transforms from the root, not the surface, they won't just adjust the relationship. They will release it entirely. So what do you do when a Scorpio pulls away from you like this? You don't chase, you don't beg, you don't ask them to be who they were. Instead, you ask yourself, am I growing too? Or am I part of what's anchoring them to a life they're meant to leave? Because if you're meant to meet again, it will be as two transformed souls, not as two people clinging to a version of the past that no longer exists. Life lesson from sign 3, letting go isn't always about rejection. Sometimes it's about evolution. When someone detaches without anger, without blame, without drama, don't assume it's personal. Sometimes the most powerful form of transformation begins with the quiet courage to say, this no longer fits who I am becoming. Sign 4. The disgust toward superficial conversations. You used to talk about everything, funny stories, social drama, random memes, but now every time you bring up small talk, they seem distant, cold, even irritated. That's not you imagining things. It's not them being rude, it's a sign. The fourth sign that a Scorpio is transforming is this. They develop a visceral disgust towards shallow, meaningless conversations. It's not that they don't love to laugh, they do. It's not that they hate people, they don't. It's that their entire vibrational frequency is shifting, and anything that doesn't match that depth feels repulsive to them. Scorpio lives beneath the surface even when they're smiling at you on the outside. They crave substance, meaning, hidden truth. And when they're transforming, their hunger for realness becomes insatiable. You'll notice it in subtle ways first. They stop responding to group chats. They look away when conversations turn gossipy. They leave the party early. They stop laughing at jokes that used to make them hysterical. What's happening? Their inner world is expanding. Their soul is shedding distraction. And superficial conversation, that's static, that's noise, that's spiritual pollution. I remember a Scorpio woman, late 30s, who went through a massive life shift after losing her mother. She told me, I tried to go back to normal, go to brunch, talk about TV shows, joke about dating apps, but it made me sick, like I was pretending to be alive in a world that was already dead to me. That's the energy of the Scorpio who's transforming. They can't pretend anymore. If it's fake, they feel it. If it's surface, they detach. If it's not soul level, they'll walk away mid-conversation if they have to. And if you're around them during this stage, you'll either feel insecure or inspired. Insecure if you're still clinging to shallow validation. Inspired if you're willing to meet them in that sacred depth. Because when a Scorpio transforms, they become allergic to pretending. Every word, every exchange must be honest, intentional, real. So if you find them quieter than usual, if they've stopped texting back about the latest gossip, if they seem annoyed by things that once bonded you, don't take it personally. They're not pushing you away, they're pulling closer to truth. And that truth demands talents, slowness, stillness. Life lesson from sign 4 depth is not a personality trait, it's a spiritual requirement for those who are evolving. When someone begins to transform the things that once entertained them, may now exhaust them, honor that shift and ask yourself, am I speaking from my truth or just filling space with noise? Sign 5, the rising discomfort with their old identity. They don't laugh like they used to. They don't dress the same. They avoid the places they once loved. And when you bring up memories, you see something strange in their eyes. Discomfort, even rejection. This is the 5th sign a Scorpio is transforming. They begin to feel deeply uncomfortable with the person they used to be. This is not a phase. This is not low self-esteem. It is metamorphosis. Scorpio doesn't evolve in fragments. They evolve in full. When they outgrow something, it's not just their career, their relationships, or their beliefs. It's their entire self-concept. The very identity they've been living in begins to feel like a prison. And if you're close to them, you'll feel it. Suddenly, the Scorpio you knew, the one who played the role, said the things embodied the persona is gone, even if they haven't left physically. Because inside, they've already walked out of that version of themselves, and they're not going back. I once worked with a Scorpio man in his 20s. He was a high-powered tech executive, admired and respected. One day, without warning, he shut down all his social media, left the company, and moved into a cabin in the Pacific Northwest. When I asked why, he said, I looked in the mirror one morning and realized I had built my entire life to impress people I wouldn't even want at my funeral. That's the Scorpio burn. They can live a life for years, but once the inner shift starts, the discomfort becomes unbearable. The mask suffocates. The old dreams rot, and they must leave. You'll know this sign is emerging when a Scorpio starts questioning their career path, changing their appearance, rejecting their old habits, expressing disgust toward their former goals, speaking about who they were in the past tense. This discomfort is sacred. It's the cracking of the inner shell. It's the whisper from their higher self saying, we can't become who we're meant to be if we keep wearing who we used to be. And here's where many people make a mistake. They try to talk the Scorpio back into comfort. They say things like, you used to love this. Don't throw it all away. That's not like you. But that's the point. It's not like them, not anymore. And trying to make them feel guilty for outgrowing themselves is the fastest way to be left behind. Life lesson from sign 5, true transformation will always make your past self uncomfortable. Growth isn't just about building, it's about shedding. When someone you love begins to reject their old identity, don't see it as instability, see it as awakening. And if you're wise, you'll ask yourself, what part of me have I outgrown, but am still pretending to be? Sign 6, the dreams that become warnings. They wake up at 3:33 a.m., eyes wide open, heart racing. Something about the dream lingers like smoke after a fire. They don't tell anyone, but something has changed. This is the 6th sign. A Scorpio is transforming. Their dreams become intense, symbolic, and eerily prophetic, almost like spiritual warnings. For Scorpio, the subconscious is not just a playground, it's a battlefield. And when transformation begins, their soul doesn't wait for conscious permission. It starts speaking through dreams. But these aren't ordinary dreams, they are messages. Sometimes chaotic, sometimes terrifying, sometimes beautiful, but always charged with meaning. Snakes, fire, caves, shadow versions of themselves, confrontations with people from the past, falling from heights, being chased through a maze, standing at a door they're afraid to open. These are not coincidences. These are not just sleep cycles. They are initiation codes. Scorpio is ruled by Pluto, the god of the underworld. And in many esoteric traditions, dreams are considered doorways to that underworld. So when a Scorpio begins dreaming more vividly, more frequently, more symbolically, it's because their soul is undergoing a shift that their waking mind isn't ready to process yet. This is why many Scorpios going through transformation feel disoriented during the day, because they've already spent the night fighting for their rebirth. I once coached a Scorpio woman in her late 40s who during her transformation kept dreaming of a black panther in her bedroom, night after night. No matter where she went, the panther followed her in the dream, silent, watching, never attacking. She later realized the panther wasn't a threat, it was her power, the wild part of her she had suppressed her entire life. And when she finally embraced it, she left a toxic relationship, started her own business, and reclaimed her voice. That's what Scorpio's dreams do. They show them what they're running from, and then they show them how to stop running. If you know a Scorpio who's dreaming more than usual, or if you are that Scorpio, pay attention. They may not talk about it, they may not even fully understand it, but something is being revealed. Something they need to confront, or walk away from, or walk toward. And here's the important part. Don't dismiss it. Don't say it's just a dream. Don't laugh it off, because to Scorpio, dreams are sacred data. They are glimpses into a soul that has no other way to scream. Life lesson from sign 6. Sometimes the soul speaks in symbols before it dares to speak in words. If your dreams are becoming more vivid during your transformation, don't ignore them. Write them down, feel them, let them guide you. Because buried within the imagery is often the exact truth your conscious mind has been afraid to face. Sign 7, the intolerance for emotional lies, especially their own. They used to let things slide. They used to say, it's fine even when it wasn't. They used to carry other people's emotions, pretend they weren't hurting, nod politely to avoid confrontation. Not anymore. This is the 7th sign. A Scorpio is transforming. They develop a zero-tolerance policy for emotional dishonesty, especially their own. Scorpios have always had a complicated relationship with truth. Not because they're liars, but because they feel so deeply they sometimes hide what they feel, just to survive. They've worn emotional masks to keep the peace. They've held back tears to avoid looking weak. They've played roles to protect others from their full intensity. But when the transformation begins, all of that shatters. They can no longer fake it. They can no longer nod along to something that's energetically false. They can no longer say yes to what their soul is screaming no to. And the first lie they confront is always the one they've been telling themselves. I remember a Scorpio client in her early 30s who had been in a long-term relationship that looked perfect on the outside. But she kept waking up every morning with a heavy chest and a fake smile. She told herself, "We're just going through a phase." She told her friends, "It's not that bad." She told herself, "Maybe I'm expecting too much." Until one day she looked in the mirror and whispered, "No more lies." And just like that, she ended it. No drama, no blame, just truth. Because when a Scorpio transforms, they choose the rawness of truth over the comfort of illusion, even when it hurts. Especially when it hurts. You'll know this sign is showing up when a Scorpio starts calling out passive aggression, walking away mid-conversation when someone deflects, admitting things they once buried, apologizing for staying silent, not for speaking up, rejecting situations where emotional clarity is missing. It might feel like they're more intense, more blunt, less friendly, but what's actually happening is they're shedding the skin of performance and choosing truth no matter how uncomfortable it makes others. And here's the sacred paradox. Scorpios don't crave confrontation, but they crave authenticity more than anything else. So when they start speaking from that raw emotional center, don't try to smooth it over. Don't say you're overreacting. Don't ask them to sugarcoat it. They won't. And if you can't handle it, that's your cue to back off. Because this version of Scorpio, they're not playing nice to keep connections. They're speaking truth to keep their soul intact. Life lesson from sign 7. When you begin to transform, your soul will start rejecting the lies you once needed to survive. It's not betrayal, it's liberation. If someone in your life suddenly becomes more emotionally raw, honest, and direct, don't assume they're angry. Assume they've finally stopped pretending. Sign 8. The refusal to save everyone anymore. They used to be the healer, the fixer, the emotional sponge who absorbed everyone else's pain and said, "Give me more, I can take it." But now, they've stopped answering late-night crisis calls. They no longer drop everything to hold someone else's broken pieces. They walk away not because they don't care, but because they finally realize saving everyone was destroying themselves. This is the 8th sign. A Scorpio is transforming. They stop trying to save people who won't save themselves. You see, Scorpio energy is naturally magnetic. People are drawn to them like moths to a flame, especially the wounded, the lost, the addicted, the emotionally unavailable. Why? Because Scorpio doesn't just love you. They see you. They see your pain, your darkness, your patterns, and for a long time they believe it's their mission to fix it. But here's the secret they never say out loud. They didn't help you just for you. They helped you because helping you made them feel worthy. Until now, when a Scorpio is transforming, something sacred clicks. This is not my work anymore. They no longer confuse martyrdom with love. They no longer believe that healing someone else will finally fill the emptiness inside them. They finally see the truth. You can drown trying to save someone who's still pretending they're not underwater. And so they stop. They stop answering every cry for help. They stop breaking their boundaries. They stop bleeding for people who cut them with the same blade they once handed over in trust. It's not cruelty, it's clarity. A Scorpio man. I once knew a therapist deeply empathetic used to give so much to his clients, family and friends that he'd collapse into depression at the end of every week. But during his transformation, he told me, "I thought holding everyone else together made me strong. Now I realize I was just delaying my own collapse." That's the moment when the savior becomes the guardian, when the fixer becomes the protector of their own spirit. So if your Scorpio friend or lover suddenly sets boundaries, if they stop showing up every time you fall apart, if they tell you you need to handle this on your own, don't get offended. Don't say they've changed. They have. And thank God they did. Because transformation means realizing it's not your job to carry everyone, especially the ones who never wanted to walk. Life lesson from sign 8. True healing begins when you stop outsourcing your worth to the pain of others. If you've always been the rescuer, the helper, the one who holds it all together, pay attention when your soul starts whispering, "Not this time." That's not selfishness. That's your rebirth. Sign 9. The sacred isolation before the rise. They stop posting. They stop going out. They stop responding. No drama, no announcement. They just vanish into themselves. This is the 9th sign. A Scorpio is transforming. They enter a period of sacred, intentional isolation, not because they're depressed, but because they are being reborn. To most people, it looks like withdrawal, loneliness, maybe even depression. But Scorpio's silence isn't empty, it's full of meaning. Scorpios understand something that most of the world fears. You cannot evolve under the spotlight. You cannot rise if everyone is still clinging to who you used to be. You cannot become the phoenix until you've burned alone in the ashes. This is why Scorpio disappears when they are changing, because their transformation is sacred, and sacred things require privacy. I once knew a Scorpio artist who went completely off the grid for 11 months. She shut down all her online accounts, moved out of the city, and refused all interviews at the peak of her success. When she came back, her voice had changed, her style had changed, her energy had changed. And when asked why she vanished, she said, "Because what I was becoming needed space, and what I was letting die needed silence." That's Scorpio energy, unapologetic, unreachable, unbreakable. If you're close to a Scorpio during this phase, you'll feel confused. You might take it personally. You might think they're shutting you out. You might feel hurt, but don't. Because what they're doing isn't about you, it's about the initiation. Scorpios don't transform in public. They don't broadcast their healing. They go inward deeper than you can follow. And if you try to reach in and pull them back out, you risk interrupting the very process that's saving their soul. Let them go. Let them descend. Let them disappear into the cave of their own rebirth. Because when they come back, they won't be the same. They will be clearer, stronger, wiser, fiercer, and closer to their soul than they've ever been, but only because they went alone. Life lesson from sign 9: some transformations require total solitude. If someone you love pulls away without explanation, pause before you panic. Ask yourself, are they breaking down or breaking through? Respect their sacred isolation. Because silence isn't always a retreat, sometimes it's the beginning of a resurrection. Sign 10, the rebirth that doesn't ask for permission. And then, one day they return, but not as the person you remember. Their energy has changed, their voice is calmer, their eyes are brighter but colder, their presence feels sacred. You try to joke with them like you used to, but they don't laugh the same. You bring up the past, they don't engage. You suggest picking things up where you left off. They look at you like you're speaking to a stranger. Because you are. This is the 10th and final sign that a Scorpio has completed their transformation. They re-emerge as a new self, unapologetic, untouchable, and unwilling to shrink for anyone. You see, Scorpio doesn't heal the way most people do. They don't slowly adjust or seek external validation. They burn, they purge, they die to everything they used to be. And when they rise again, they do not ask for permission to exist in this new form. They embody it. You might feel like they're colder, more distant, harder to access. But that's not ego, that's sovereignty. They have returned not as the caterpillar, not even as the butterfly, but as something otherworldly, a being forged in shadow, polished by silence, crowned in truth. I knew a Scorpio woman who, after 3 years of isolation and spiritual work, re-entered her community with no announcement, no explanation. She looked the same, but no one could speak to her the way they used to. People whispered that she had changed too much, but those who truly understood said something else. She's finally become who she always was, and now she's not hiding it. That's the power of Scorpio's rebirth. It doesn't explain itself. It doesn't apologize. It doesn't fit back into the boxes others built to feel comfortable. It outgrows them, and it keeps moving forward with grace, with mystery, with quiet fire. And if you're standing there when they return, still expecting them to behave like the person you once knew, you'll be disappointed. Because you didn't witness a makeover. You witnessed a metamorphosis. And no, they won't water themselves down to make you feel safe. They've done enough of that in their old life. This version has boundaries, power, vision, and no time to look back. Life lesson from sign 10. True transformation does not seek approval, it demands embodiment. When someone re-emerges after deep spiritual change, honor the strength it took to let go of who they were. Don't expect familiarity. Don't demand softness. Witness them, learn from them, and ask yourself, what part of me have I been hiding to make others comfortable? Conclusion. What emerges from the fire is no longer who you knew, it's who they were born to be. You've now seen the 10 signs. 10 sacred signals that a Scorpio is not just changing but shedding their former self. 10 moments that to the untrained eye look like distance, coldness, even rejection, but to those who truly see are evidence of something far more powerful, a soul in resurrection. Scorpio doesn't transform in pieces. They don't heal in half measures. They don't ask for your understanding. They surrender to the fire and let it consume everything that was never truly them. And here's what most people never understand. When a Scorpio transforms, it's not a phase, it's not a mood, it's not rebellion. It's a soul contract being activated. They go silent because the noise no longer nourishes them. They cut ties because their energy no longer matches. They stare through people because they can finally see. They walk away from the past because their future won't accept baggage. They isolate because the sacred work requires solitude. And when they rise for no one's comfort but their own truth. So, what should you do? Don't cling, don't chase, don't argue with their silence or try to reverse the process. Instead, respect it, witness it, honor it, and most of all, reflect it back onto yourself. Because maybe the discomfort you're feeling isn't about them changing. Maybe it's about you not being ready to meet your own transformation. So ask yourself now, what version of me is outdated? Where have I been lying to myself emotionally? What parts of my life feel false, heavy, or borrowed? What am I afraid to walk away from, even though my soul has already outgrown it? Because this isn't just a Scorpio story, this is a human one. And the deeper truth is, we are all Scorpios when we decide to let our old self burn and rise anew. Final reflection. If you've ever watched someone transform and felt threatened, look again. Maybe the fire wasn't burning you, maybe it was inviting you to burn too. And if you are the Scorpio in this story, let this be your confirmation. You don't need to explain, you don't need to apologize, you don't need to shrink. You're not becoming someone else, you're finally becoming you. Call to action. What sign resonated most with where you are right now? Have you ever seen someone go through this sacred process, or are you going through it now? Share your story in the comments. Let this space be a mirror for all the souls in transition. And if you're ready to embrace more truths about yourself, your transformation, and your zodiac path, subscribe to the Path to Buddha Wisdom and join a community where your rebirth is never questioned, only honored.